Dual careers became a phenomenon nobody paid any attention to. I wrote a paper on dual careers in the global marketplace, global human resource management, in 1997. It's the first article that's ever been written on the topic. I thought there had been 10,000 articles. But it was unexpected because people didn't expect this phenomenon to take place. Incongruent. What do you see that doesn't make sense to you? When you look at things and you say, it just doesn't make any sense. Why are people doing that? Okay? Why are we so worried about research in the academic community and we're not worried about teaching? Who's our customer? The people we send this research to? The answer is no. Who pays the bills? Not those people. We focus on that one and forget about the other. That's the incongruency to me. Based upon process needs. Look at how things are managed. Look at the standard operating procedure and say, that just doesn't make sense anymore. Let me give you an example. We have a concept that we've all learned called span of control. What does span of control mean? How many people can I manage effectively? And the number, ingrained in every management book there is 8 to 9 people.
Family.
Huh?
Out of family.
Yeah, well, my question is, okay, we're going global, and we're going to say, now we have virtual organizations, how many people can you manage? I don't know. The standard operating procedures we have, the conventional wisdoms no longer hold. Creativity looks at those, it should look at those and say, this doesn't make any sense. I'm writing a paper right now on the new rules of thumb for management.
This is of actually old people.
It does. Well, remember what I said about making a contribution. You got to make people mad. You got to make them uncomfortable with what's going on. And I'm writing an article for organizational dynamics that's going to say, here are the old conventional wisdoms, here's what's changed, here's the new conventional wisdom. Again, all the rules of thumb that you need that should be written into the textbooks. I've gone through 10 or 12 of the best-selling textbooks, and they all have these topics in there that make absolutely no sense. You talk about putting together plans, okay? And then I say, we're in hyper-competition, things are changing like this. How are you going to put together a 5-year plan? I'm not sure how you do that. Changes in industry structure, what we're seeing is the industry's changed because of globalization. My company had an effective radius of 600 miles. All of a sudden, people were coming from overseas, selling in my marketplace. They were coming from 5,000 miles away. How were they doing it? Did it impact my industry? The answer is yes. That's one of the reasons I sold this company. Demographic changes. What's happening in the academic community that's going to be catastrophic right now? I can only give you U.S. numbers, but the numbers here will be the same thing. There are 100,000 professors who are just like me who are going to retire. Next 5 years, 20,000 business school faculty members in the United States are going to retire. And we're going to replace them with what? We turn out 2,000 PhDs a year in business. So over a 5-year time period, we're going to have 10,000 and 100,000 are going to retire. What does that mean for the industry?
Yeah.
Lack of people.
The lack of skills.
What are we going to do?
Sure.
Maybe
Could. There are guys like Slocum retires, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to die at my desk.
Prepare maybe.
I like it. Vivaldi would be playing. You know, I hit my head on one of the fossils when I fall down. But John wants to play golf. But I'm saying there's 100,000 that they are projecting that will retire in 5 years, 20,000 a year. Let me give you what happened in the United States so far. We can't find people to hire. John Slocum, this guy I'm talking about, hired his replacement. Guy had never taught, never done any research. He hired him from the University of Texas, just finished his degree, paid him $180,000 a year. Teach one class a semester. If he hits his goals from a research standpoint, he'll teach one class a year. John's been doing this, has published 300 articles, he made $165,000. That's what's happening in the United States. You'll go to very good schools and they'll say, we want any discipline, any stage of your career, we don't care. Dartmouth, Cornell, Wharton, places like that. Washington University in St. Louis. They are so desperate for people. That's the place my wife's going to tomorrow. Melbourne, University of Melbourne, has 8 positions open in the management department. That's crazy. Okay, I look at the Chronicle of Higher Education every day just to keep track for my PhD student what's available. There are 2,000 jobs listed on the Chronicle of Higher Education, and you don't get the big surge until August. So there's a demographic change that is going to be chaotic. Changes in perceptions, what people think, what I call the liability of being foreign. What do you guys have to overcome from not being from Australia? You're going to be thought of differently in your career. How are you going to manage that? New knowledge, both scientific and non-scientific. What can we apply? I read the scientific journals. I read a certain journal called Science. I have come up with an idea that I think is great. Any of you ever heard of a term called circadian cycles? Circadian cycles means it's very much like a menstrual cycle for women. You go through a cycle during a month where you have high receptivity, low receptivity, and we can measure it. The Russians have been doing it for a long time. They were doing it so when they made assignments in their military, that they would get people, when they fought, at their highest level of efficiency. What, could I use that in business? The answer is yeah, that'd be great. I can use it in academics. When I do a survey, I have to know what stage you're in to know whether you're up or you're down, whether you're coming up or you're going down. I mean, that's a relatively neat idea. It's a piece of science that I think I can use. I'm done, but this is important. Don't be like everybody else. Don't be a mechanic. Know it, understand it, but the people that are really going to make a contribution are what everybody calls are the oddballs. The Robert Sternbergs, me, Bandura, people like that just say, let's figure out a different way. And again, the people I talk to on a worldwide basis are trying to make this work over here. Guys, it ain't going to happen. Welcome to a world where imagination is going to be what makes you successful. Learning techniques will not make you successful in your career. It will keep you a job, but it will not make you successful. The guy that said that was Tom Peters. Anybody remember who Tom Peters was? Wrote one of the most read books that was ever read in business. What was it? Black cover, In Search of Excellence. He wrote a book and he said, I'm going to determine if there's common characteristics across companies that make them successful. He went, he studied a whole bunch of companies, he came up with 12 that he wrote them. These are excellent companies. 5 years later, 8 out of the 12 were in bankruptcy. Sure. But he came up with a really good idea. He thinks the most important ingredient for success is imagination. You've got to learn to be persistent. From one failure to the next failure to the next failure, and say, I'm learning. I understand something better. I'm getting a clearer picture. The guy that said this is fairly famous too. Yeah. Any questions?
Thanks,
Thank
Michael.
you.
Yeah. If you want a whole bunch of ideas, they're right here. You guys have any questions? Need anything that's clear? And I'm sure that you'll get copies of the slides and everything, so you'll have at least some idea what I'm talking about.
I just wanted to ask a question. When do you know that a piece of paper is ready to be sent to the publisher?
Yeah, you don't. That's Miriam's problem. It could be better. It could, and the answer is, yeah, it could be. But what you're really saying is, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be told it was bad. I don't want to do this. I look at that as a learning experience. That's why I send it out, not for an 18-month review. I send it to John Slocum. Do you know when he gets that article back to me? The next day.
Please tell my supervisor that.
Pardon me?
Tell my supervisor.
Yeah, well, let me give you this. I've supervised 50 dissertations. If you hand me a chapter, I will get that chapter back to you within 24 hours. The changes that need to be done.
Which university?
Yeah. Why? Because I had a professor who took 6 months a chapter. It took me 3 years. I had to get in my car and drive out there and say, what do you think? It was 958 miles. One time he went on and said, well, it just doesn't, it's not right. Took it back, changed the font, retyped it, gave it back. Now this is what I'm looking for. So that's why I said if I ever got in a role, I would never do that to my students, and I don't. When I work with my co-authors and we have, let's review the paper, I will get it back to them in 24 hours.